Hello, my name is Russell Myers. Welcome to Issues Unite. So, Seymour Hersh, one of the best investigative journalists in recent history, starting with his expose of the My Lai massacre, he has also exposed the false narrative regarding the gas attacks or chemical weapons attacks in Syria as being false, and with the British government being involved in that. Well, so he came out with a report recently, which you can find on Substack, Seymour Hersh on Substack, and his investigative journal report has an unnamed source, which all journalists investigative journalists are likely to use unnamed sources. Deep Throat was an anonymous source during the Watergate. So I don't have any problem with an unnamed source, which is a whistleblower, providing information to a journalist. They've got to protect their own that source has to protect their safety. The journalist is going to protect their source. Seymour Hersh would not be using some random, whoever source that did not have knowledge on the matter. Anyway, the information there gives absolute evidence that the United States government was involved all the way up to the top, and Joe Biden himself was involved in the sabotage of the Nordstream pipelines, Nordstream 1 and 2. And also, the Norwegian government was also involved. It doesn't take much to realize who would be behind these things. Because, the day after the Nord Stream sabotage, Norway announces that they are opening their own gas pipeline to Europe. Now, the actual attacks and were planned in 2021, late 2021, months before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Russia had built the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and the German government, pressured by the American government, refused to certify the Nord Stream pipeline. That had been going on for quite some time. Now, if you look at this objectively, there was absolutely no reason for these pipelines to be blown up. The lines were pressurized, but nothing was moving through them. They had to remain pressurized because they are under immense pressure under the weight of the ocean. But Nord Stream 1 was not functional because of a turbine issue. Nord Stream 2 had never been certified by the German authorities to function. So what was the point of blowing them up? To remove the option for the German people to demand that these pipelines be opened up again to purchase more Russian oil. Who makes a profit off of all of this? Well, look at how much gas, liquefied natural gas, is being shipped to Europe from America. Look at how much money the Norwegian government is now making from their gas pipeline, which has risen by, 400% over 1 year. So these are, I had done a video at the time that this happened. This is a war crime, and this was one of the worst environmental disasters to have happened in world history, with the amount of methane that was pumped into the atmosphere because of this sabotage. As of right now, no major news outlet anywhere in the world except for Russia has published or even adequately discussed Seymour Hersh's article. Now, there's discussion that, the German people are not, because it's not being published in the media, that the German people are aware of it. People have said that the Germans are not aware. Well, according to Alexander Mercouris, who has friends in Germany, yes, the German people are aware of this. We're living in a different time. They don't have to rely on mainstream media to get this information. I really hope the awareness regarding this continues to spread, because this is something the German government is not talking about it. The United States government has called it all lies, but he goes into so much detail on this. And everything there is plausible. He said that that American divers planted C4 on the pipelines, and then the Norwegian government dropped a buoy which communicated with the explosive charges so that it could be detonated 3 months after the charges were planted. And this is all extremely plausible. There's no other explanation. The investigation that has been conducted is not being published. You are not allowed to know what is in the result of that investigation from the German and Norwegian and Swedish authorities. Plus, they did not allow Russian representatives, divers, to examine the area. Why are they not being allowed to examine it? It would be perfectly acceptable to see Russian divers, doing an investigation with other representatives, divers from other nations present at the time, to make sure that nothing got altered or to make it look like something that it wasn't. So before Russia invaded Ukraine, Joe Biden himself said that if Russia invaded Ukraine, that the Nordstream pipelines would be halted, and made this vague statement of, oh, we have ways. It doesn't take a lot of imagination to say that the United States is involved in a deception to bring the United States into a war. I mean, the Gulf of Tonkin never happened. Weapons of mass destruction in Iraq never happened. There were none there. We can keep going back in history. Remember that there was a Japanese ambassador that was trying to tell the American government that an attack on Pearl Harbor was going to happen 5 to 7 days before that attack occurred. And from what I understand, that man actually committed suicide. He felt like he had failed so badly with what followed. You can go back through the Pentagon Papers and just one thing after another after another. Our government has always falsely presented things to bring us into warfare. You know, the gas attacks in Syria, leading to, missile attacks, cruise missiles launched against Syria. Afghanistan, the Taliban actually offered for 10 months to hand over Osama bin Laden, and our government refused. Something to keep in mind about the Nord Stream pipelines is that Russia didn't really want the Nord Stream pipelines. It was built because the Germans wanted it. And Angela Merkel talked Putin into doing it. Even Gazprom did not want this done, but Putin ordered them for diplomatic reasons. It wasn't for economic reasons, it was for diplomatic reasons. At least half, maybe more, of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline at the very least, but both Nord Stream 1 and 2 were actually funded by German investors. You look at what has happened to the German economy and the deindustrialization of Germany at this point. Germany has made it through this winter and with adequate gas supplies for basic needs, but they still wound up with having to close a lot of their industries down, their manufacturing plants, their steel plants, chemical plants, etc. This was an attack on a NATO country. This should spark Article 5 of the NATO treaty, that if one country is attacked, all the other countries will respond militarily. This was a direct attack on Germany. Now, while Germany has made it through this winter, that's because their gas supplies underground gas supplies were built up, but at least 50% of those underground gas supplies actually came from Russia. Until the complete cutoff of Russian gas, the amount of natural gas sold to Europe from Russia had actually increased last year, which is the only thing that really gave them the ability to build up their gas supplies. Over the course of the coming year, they aren't going to have that option because they have made that decision. The German government made that decision. It wasn't the German people that made that decision. So this is not the only war crime that has been committed by the West during this conflict. You think about the fact that Ukrainian forces have been documented using chemical weapons, cluster bombs, which are against international law, but they're being used. Pedal mines, the anti-personnel pedal mines have been dropped on civilian areas in the Donbass region. Now there is a report which has come out which has proven that the United States is sending depleted uranium artillery shells to Ukraine. So, radiological weapons, dirty bombs. And Russia has stated that if those are used, they will consider it a dirty bomb or multiple dirty bombs, and that would be a war crime committed by whoever provided those weapons. The effects of depleted uranium are well documented, and the United States has used depleted uranium previously in Syria and Iraq, and it resulted in the cancer rate doubling and widespread birth defects. So these are crimes against humanity. So we got crimes against humanity and a direct attack on the German people, the German economy, the European economy, who have been struggling with, loss of jobs, deindustrialization, runaway inflation, and their industries, some of their industries saying that they're going to move to America, where our government is giving subsidies to companies that move from Europe to America. This is forcing Europe to be subservient and dependent on the United States, which I did a video about some time ago on my presidential channel. And the title of that video is Subservience. This is an attack on the German and European sovereignty. It takes away their right to make decisions regarding their own well-being. So we have attacks on allegedly allied nations, war crime, widespread, numerous war crimes that are being committed. The stripping of sovereignty from European nations, the destruction of economies, violations of international law. A person has to really question just what do we stand for? Because everything being indicated here is that we absolutely do not stand for what our governments claim that they stand for. This should absolutely cause widespread protests across Germany. The more that the awareness of this spreads among the German people, that's what I'm hoping happens. It doesn't matter whether the Nordstream pipeline is repaired or whatever. The awareness of this is what matters, because they've had their right to self-determination taken away from them. How would you feel if another country bombed our gas pipelines and drove up your utility bills by 200, 300%? In fact, we have a violation of the NATO Charter. This was an attack on an allied NATO member. So, yeah, I really advise, if you haven't read Seymour Hersh's article, then you really should. Again, it's Seymour Hersh on Substack. All right, so share this video. Talk about these subjects. If you can afford it, please donate whatever you can to help expand this channel and my presidential campaign, and I will catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a good day.